Mysterious killings happening every 30 years include victims with their livers removed. What's more, there's seemingly no point of entry. Doors and windows are found locked from the inside. No alarm systems. Nothing points to a normal crime scene. Who could be behind these bizarre cases?
This is not happening.
Hello and welcome to This Is Not Happening, another X-Files podcast.
Yeah, well, I've got this case that's out there. Baltimore PD calls. They want our help on a serial killer profile. 3 murders began 6 weeks ago. Victims vary in age, race, gender, no known connections to each other.
I take it there's a pattern.
Point of entry. Actually, the lack of one.
What do you mean?
One victim, college girl, killed in her 10 by 12 cinder block dorm room. She was found with the windows locked and the door chained from the inside. The last incident, 2 days ago. High security office building. Nothing on the security monitors. Janitor spoke to the victim minutes before the murder. Didn't hear or see a thing out of the ordinary.
Suicide?
Each victim was found with their liver ripped out. No cutting tool was used.
Bare hands? This looks like an X-file.
Let's not get carried away. I'm going to solve these murders, but what I would like from you is to go over the case histories. Maybe come down to the crime scene.
Do you want me to ask Mulder?
Okay, if he wants to come and do you a favor, great. But make sure he knows this is my case. Dana, if I can break a case like this one, I'll be getting my bump up the ladder. And you, maybe you won't have to be Mrs. Spooky anymore.
So today we're talking about Squeeze, the oft-mentioned and oft-loved episode, the first Monster of the Week episode.
Looking forward to it.
First impressions. I think this episode, it's a classic. It sets up the Monster of the Week formula pretty well. What do you think going into this, reaching all the way back to 93?
Well, I think that's the main thing, right? 1993, the production value, and it's like the second show after the main two, right?
Mm-hmm.
The pilot and Deep Throat. So it's basically the first time that they're really out on their own and running, and there's still a lot of things they're working out, I feel. Some of the pacing is a bit clunky, and, you know, it's pretty hard not to see that it's 1993. And at the time, perfectly watchable, but, you know, looking at it through a 2022 lens, it's notably a bit old, long in the tooth maybe in some ways. But a lot to like. I think a lot to like. And definitely a lot to talk about. So my first impressions are good. And there's a reason that it's a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah. The show was more than just UFOs and aliens. And I don't think the public knew that they were going to do something like this. But I think it definitely worked out in their favor.
Well, as we said before, I think it really just underlines how well it is set up with the partners being FBI agents, that they can go off and do any kind of case. And this is a great example of that, right? Like, they're going to go off to Baltimore and investigate weird killings where, you know, another, in today's day and age, where you got multi-episode storylines, which are constantly episodic. You know, it's going from, the story continues, right? It's not segmented like it is on a sitcom. You know, they can go and do that, and it's perfectly logical that they would be assigned to a case like that, as opposed to, you know, why you could sit there and look at Mulder and go, well, why isn't he constantly after the aliens, and, you know, why is he being diverted to look into squeeze monsters? But it makes sense. It makes sense, and I like it.
To get into the episode, this one is written by the duo Morgan and Wong, heavy hitters for the show. They are easily some of the show's best writers for disturbing or dark material. And it is directed by Harry Longstreet, his only contribution to the series, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that is true. Apparently not such a great working relationship for Mr. Longstreet and everybody on the team. I think he had some ideas of what the show was supposed to be that may not have jibed with Carter and the gang.
Mm-hmm. We open on the streets of Baltimore, Maryland. A businessman. It's nighttime. He's walking into his office. He looks a little bit downtrodden, and he makes a phone call to his wife. Dear wife at home alone. Little does he know he's about to be assaulted.
That's a hallmark of this episode, is just how well done it is, showing the creature, showing Tooms, in these ways where you don't see him, but you see his effect on the world. So you see things like elevator wires that sort of jingle a little bit, and screws that turn of their own accord, and the doors being smashed by him. So you don't see him doing it. You don't see him doing these things, but you see the results of him being there.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting way to show a villain, I think.
And in fact, the first shot we get of him walking into the business tower is we get Tooms' eyes in that sewer grate. I feel like they were doing like an homage to It with that
definitely.
scene, peering out of darkness.
Yep.
Tooms comes out of the vent and attacks Mr. Businessman.
Yeah. The word I have in my notes is precise, and
He's very deliberate.
Yeah. Which makes you wonder why later on he screws up so much. But anyway.
He does make a fatal flaw.
Yeah. Scully has that effect on people.
Right. He gets attacked. We go into the title card. And then when we come out, who makes an appearance? Donald Logue as Colton. Everyone's favorite douchebag. He's meeting with Scully for lunch.
Sure.
He's looking for his kick up the ladder, and he's at a dead end with this case. He doesn't know where to go. The points of entry just aren't there. There's no sign of forced entry. Doors are being locked from the inside, yet people are murdered. So he is desperate, and Scully is his way in to ask Mulder for his theory, because Mulder is, of course, a brilliant profiler.
I think that they want to show us that she's brainy. She is pulling her weight, so much so that she gets the praise of that committee or task force, whatever you want to call it, saying, hey, you should come, basically implying you should come work for us and not go chase down little green men with your other partner.
Right.
But that's skipping ahead.
No worries. So yeah, she takes the case and she brings it to Mulder. We've got Mulder explaining that this case goes back a long time. Fingerprints in the backlight, really cool stuff, showing kind of the strangeness of the case that Mulder's got in the X-Files.
I will say that one thing that comes back through and through in this episode is Scully being put in this position where it's not all the X-Files. The FBI is an institution. They have a history. They have a way of doing things. And Mulder's very much on the outside of that. And I like how they play with the tension of her being, having a foot in both worlds. She is Mulder's partner, and she has seen some things. But at the same time, her career rests pretty solidly in the grounded world of science and in that institution. And she is kind of risking advancement in that world by being with Mulder. And I think that's a message that gets repeated a lot in this episode. And so that's a character choice for her, right? She's got to decide whether she's going to be loyal and stick with Mulder, or whether she's going to be tempted by the institution.
And I think it was a good case for her to spread her wings. She was being pulled in two different directions, but I don't think at her heart she had any intention of leaving. She just wanted to help out. And I think that's just, it speaks to her character as the investigator, as the government employee trying to do the best job they can do.
Yep.
When Colton walks into the room and Mulder's there talking to Scully, he offers his hand to Mulder.
It is certainly a thing in this episode with the territoriality. But with the handshake, I would almost expect there to be a close-up on those hands and the wrists sort of pulsating with strength, and who's going to give first.
The Predator handshake.
The Predator handshake, exactly. But they don't linger on it, which, to their credit, I guess they've only got so much good stuff they can put in this episode. But
and we get the gist of what's going on immediately, right?
Yeah.
Don't need to linger on it on a 45-minute episode. Mulder immediately finds a piece of evidence, that little hair in the grate.
I think it's metal shavings.
Excuse me, metal shavings off the screw.
Yeah, I think it's from the screw, and that's what he's looking at, going, "Oh, what is this screw?" And of course, it's such a weird clue, right?
He immediately gets out the fingerprint brush and starts dusting for prints.
Yep.
And Donald Logue's like, "You're an idiot. That vent, no one could fit in that." But sure enough, there's a fingerprint.
Nobody can. But this is the beginning of Mulder's superpower. He's gonna. I wonder if at this point has he already figured out the entire plot?
He knows.
Yeah, an alien came through that vent.
From that fingerprint, the camera zooms in and it zooms out on Mulder's projector, and they're sitting down comparing fingerprints, which Mulder has already pulled for Scully from previous cases. So I think, yes, you are correct. He has definitely figured the whole thing out.
Well, the stretch fingerprint, I mean, that is that is pretty significant and iconic,
yeah.
right? If it had been taken in another case, then it is something that would probably stand out for him.
Definitely.
So we're back in the old X-Files office looking at fingerprints.
And they're just continuing to discuss this case and how it could possibly be related to someone being that old.
This is the print I took yesterday from Usher's office. These others are from an X-File. It's 10 murders, Baltimore area, undetermined points of entry. Each victim had their liver removed. These prints were discovered at 5 of the 10 crime scenes.
10 murders. Colton never mentioned...
Most likely he's unaware of them. These 2 prints were lifted 5 years before he was born at Powhatan Mill. And these 3 were lifted probably 5 years before his mother was even born.
Are you saying these prints are from the 1960s and the 1930s?
And fingerprinting was just coming into its own in 1903, but there was a murder involving an extracted liver.
Of course.
Now that's 5 murders every 30 years. That makes 2 more to go this year.
You're saying these are copycats?
What did we learn our first day at the academy, Scully? Each fingerprint is unique. These are a perfect match.
Are you suggesting that I go before the violent crime section and present a profile declaring that these murders are done by aliens?
No, of course not. I find no evidence of alien involvement.
Well, what then? That this is the work of a 100-year-old serial killer who's capable of overpowering a healthy 6'2" businessman?
And he should stick out in a crowd with 10-inch fingers.
You know, this setup of Scully the skeptic versus Mulder the believer, I mean, this tension is a well that they go back to many, many times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great scene where they go through that dynamic. So she's reluctant to get involved because, the X-File connection is tenuous. But he's decided that no, this is exciting and interesting to me. Yeah, let's do it because I can totally see a link here. And you can kind of see that he wants to solve it instead of Colton. And whether it's for credibility or whether it's just to show up Colton, it doesn't really matter.
And it is part of that pissing contest. He knows they've had a case, they've had an X-File dating back to 1903, and he even says it. We've had it first. It's our case. And they compromise by doing 2 separate investigations, one for the X-Files and one with Colton. And then Scully goes into an epic monologue.
It's not epic, it's classic. But yeah, I love the good old CRT monitor from 1994, the 100 pounds of monitor sitting on her desk.
Fading in and out of text, writing over her.
Well, clearly time is passing. I will accept this. It's all good.
No, but it does give that great exposition in a pretty succinct way, catching everyone up so we're all on the same page.
Yep. It's a classy exposition dump. So we cut to Scully briefing this, what looks like to be a task force of some kind investigating the murder. And everybody's very pleased with her work, doing the profile of the killer. Which, of course, begs the question, we've already alluded to this, why isn't Mulder the one delivering this profile, other than he's probably persona non grata around these parts?
Yeah, he's not even a part of this.
But I like how they poke fun at her X-Files assignment. Again, I sort of indicated this earlier, where I forget what that guy's name is, but you can join us if you don't mind working on an assignment that's more down to earth. Nudge my...
I would like to note, as part of my recurring character actor segment, we see him again in Soft Light as Bannon's partner.
Right. He's got an intelligent computer that does all this work for him.
I was watching Millennium today because I'm finally getting around to it, and there are hundreds of X-Files cameos in there, or just actors. Just amazing.
Yeah. They draw from the same pool.
For sure. They get Scully on the case, and they move to the parking garage where there is a stakeout. Scully has profiled this guy, and she believes he will be here tonight. And who shows up but Mulder with a bag of sunflower seeds to bust her balls?
Well, it is the first time. Is it the first time we see Mulder? No, he had sunflower seeds in the pilot. Yes, so they're doing good in bringing back little plot hooks with these characters.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a bait and switch for sure, because we have that initial fake out with her pulling the gun on him, basically, and that's probably one of the poorer bits of weapon handling and blocking. I mean, I feel like, no, he's a dead man. Just the way that she's holding the gun and she spooks her. It just looks like one slip and boom, he's got a bullet in the gut. But I'll forgive it because it's early. And yeah, it's pretty cheesy. But I do like, though, that they have that moment so that we can go, oh, we've had our tension, and this is what this scene is about. Mm-hmm. So that later on, when she draws into the vent, then it's like, what? Actually, this is going to be our fight scene. Oh wow, okay,
yeah,
cool. It really plays out in a way that is unexpected. You know, you don't get the villain surrendering in the first act. That never happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really nicely. I like the way the plot does this in that it gets us to a point we don't expect, because we're conditioned to think that it's going to be a cat and mouse game with this sadistic, brutal killer, precise killer, and yet he's caught right away.
Yeah,
by a girl with a gun. You know, it doesn't.
And if you, speaking to that note, if you look at Donald Logue in the background, he's acting like oh man, I got him, and he's, I don't know, he needs some training.
Well, I don't think the halcyon days of X-Files production, I don't think that they had weapons consultants.
For
I
sure.
think that they had Harry Longstreet basically saying, yeah, you should hold your gun like this.
You'll never see me again.
Harry Longstreet, you're fired. But it looks cool.
Yeah. Eugene is apprehended, like you said. And we move from the parking garage to the interrogation. I love this scene.
Production notes on the parking garage, obviously in BC, but the vent structure where they capture Tooms, there is something like that in the parking structure, but it wasn't accessible. They couldn't get access to it, and it wasn't going to work. They couldn't put cameras in the right place. So they rebuilt it. They actually made a new set similar with, pipes and vents and all the rest of it, and they built it into position so they could shoot that scene. And I think that's really fun. It's like, okay, we're going to make that, but we're going to do it over there.
When you got a vision, you got a vision.
He sure did. He's like, oh, I like that vent. Let's make it over there.
More work for our crew.
Yep. Everybody's going to eat tonight.
So Tooms in the polygraph. I find it disturbing. This scene, Doug Hutchinson, who plays Tooms, does such a good job in this scene. He acts so... He's like answering questions the way he thinks a normal person would answer them, because he's trying to fit in and kind of skirt the law and get away. He's got this real mental sociopathic thing going on here. The way he's answering these questions, straight faced. The only question he second guesses is the last one. He was not expecting anyone to ask actual questions that, why would you ask me about 1933 or Powhatan Mill? Okay, so that threw him off. He didn't prepare for that. I'm sure in some way he's prepared for these kind of lowball questions.
I have to wonder, though, if he's ever encountered the polygraph. So I imagine he's encountered local law enforcement, but you got to wonder, like, he would have had a file with the FBI if they'd encountered him before and done the polygraph on him. But I don't think he prepared for it. I think that this is just him being him. And he is able to just answer the way he does. Like, he probably is smart enough that he gets, the polygraph, they're going to try and catch me out in the lie. Like, he's plugged in enough to know that. But he's so confident, and he's got such good emotional control.
Until he does not.
That he is able to beat the system. And I just want to say, I love that the polygraph is our visual indication of his ability to mask the lie. It'd be one thing if it was just an interrogation and you'd go, oh, he's stone cold. But to see his endocrine system displayed before you in a polygraph is very cool. And that you're like, oh, he's another kind of evil.
Yeah, he's stonewalling.
So inherently evil.
And he's very good at it. And there is a good chance that he has encountered this before because of the other detective from the 60s who was on to him. So there's a chance this guy can regulate his answers because, as they point out, he knows how to hide. He knows how to lay low when he needs to. So I think that plays into it a bit.
Oh, a lie detector in the 60s? Probably not. But, I mean, we could get thrown onto the plot detail. Like, I would not want to what if this episode too much because then it might fall apart. what's the name of our old man detective? Is that Frank Briggs is his name? Anyway, I could totally see him strapping some electrodes and a car battery onto Tooms to try and get to the truth, but I don't think that would produce the same results.
We have the post-interrogation scene. The lead detectives are not happy with Mulder's questions. They think it's beside the point. They think he's out of his mind for asking those questions. Yeah, it's just normal FBI behavior towards Spooky Mulder. But beyond that, Mulder and Scully have a chat, and he even gives her an out. She's free to make her own decisions. If you help these guys, I won't hold it against you. I understand. But she chooses to stick by him, and I think that's part of just what makes their characters so good so early on. She wants to see what he's got, because she sees, that typical Mulder, I know what's going on look he's got, and she's curious.
I like that this exposes Mulder's inability to play the system. Like, I think he's aware, in a way, of what he is doing when he asks these questions. He knows that he's offside when he asks these questions, but he's kind of hoping that somebody else will see what he sees. Mm-hmm. And yet he I don't think is disappointed or not overly disappointed when he comes back with, oh, they're not bright enough to get it. They are not open-minded enough to see why I ask these questions and what the implications of those answers are.
And moving from the creepy necklace point out, what Mulder has, and he shows Scully the fingerprint in his office.
I love computer solutions to
it's so not how it works.
Evidence. Exactly, like it's in CSI, where you see these montages of the computer doing the 3D render of the crime scene, and like in a moment they're able to go, oh yeah, it looks like the shot did come from the third floor, because they had the video game of the bullet flying through the air. Yep. It's like, I'm sure not a detective, but I'm sure every detective out there who watches those shows goes, yeah, it doesn't happen like that. We don't. I wish we had that, but we don't got that.
Yeah, in this scene, the fingerprint Mulder has just kind of elongates and squeezes together, and then aligns itself perfectly with the fingerprint from the file. Hey, it's 93. You got to buy it.
And you wonder if, I wish I could go back to 93, Andrew, and go, hey, when you were watching that, did you go, doubt it? Or did you go, wow, the FBI's got some really amazing gear?
Yeah, to our point in a different episode, this show kind of came about at the right time, right place, where we had no clue about all the tech.
Yeah.
So Tooms is about to make his next kill. We've got the sneak-in scene with Jeb, or that's who I call Jeb because it says it on his license plate. We have rare footage of Hutchison sneaking into his underage wife's place.
I think that's a stretch, but I like it.
I'm kidding. Low-hanging fruit, I'm sorry.
That's all good.
Anyway, this is a great scene, and it raises the stakes of the episode a lot. The whole idea of Tooms being able to fit into small places, but now we actually get to see it when he goes into the chimney, and I think it's just such a good scene because no dialogue, but we're able to see what this guy can do.
And that's the strength of the X-Files, is letting you in just enough to be frightening or exciting, because you get to see this. You got a front row seat to things that our characters don't get to see. And I'll talk about it later. Just the idea of, would this be a better episode if we didn't have the backstage seat to the Tooms kills, essentially. But in this scene, the effect is pretty much practical, literally because they got a contortionist on set who could do this. And I think they brought him on set and said, "This is what we need you to do. Can you show us what you're capable of doing?" And I think they just sort of figured he'd stick his head in there, and then they would cut to that other scene where he's able, they do a little bit of practical trickery to make it look like he's stretching down, from the reverse angle down the chimney. But in fact, like it says in the production notes, he was able to squeeze in there, and they're just all sitting there with their jaws dropping, saying, "Oh, this is so cool.
We got more than we paid for."
Yeah. Don't need to get the extra large. Don't need to rebuild a chimney for the effect we want here.
And we get a little bit of a tense moment We see Tooms going in the chimney, and the guy can't get his fire lit. So we think Tooms is going to come down the chimney and get him, but it turns out he wants to give him a hug from behind.
I wish we knew what time of year this was, because if it was June, I'd be like, who lights their fireplace in June? But I will say, a man who has a set of katana on their fireplace
Must
is
die.
probably a man who likes to have fires in June.
True.
And you do that as monster prevention, because you never know when a squeeze monster is going to come down the monster hole. So.
And the end of this shot is a little corny for me. The slow-mo, kind of the grunting of Tooms. A little 90s for me, but it's pretty awesome.
I they probably could have done a bit better, but they did blow their money on a contortionist, so they didn't have a whole lot.
We can't afford a decent scene.
Yeah.
And then from there, we get the crime scene. And Mulder comes in and identifies Tooms as the perpetrator immediately.
Yep, that's his superpower.
Well, he's got the missing trinket and then the fingerprint, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's figured out the how and the who. He just hasn't figured out the why yet.
Yeah. Donald Logue, of course, is there to be a jerk and kind of prevent Mulder from coming in, but Scully lets him have it. You cannot obstruct another officer.
I look at Colton, and I think we touched on this briefly, in that the idea of him being Scully's protector, the idea of territory, that Scully is this object that sort of bounces between Mulder and Colton, and he seems concerned about, well, obviously he's concerned about his career. And number one, but he seems to sort of hold the carrot of Scully's career out. You know, that you're wasting your time, you're spinning your wheels with this Mulder guy.
That could very well be, but I guess personally, I've viewed it as he's just such a closed-minded individual that he can't stand the fact that someone he went to the academy with would ally herself with someone like Mulder, who doesn't supposedly take his job seriously. He just can't pocket that kind of thought for Scully.
Well, and that's it speaks well of Scully that she's able to identify. Again, she's a good analyst of people.
For sure.
She's able to identify that Colton's concern about his career is his weakness, and so she uses that to get him to back off.
Exactly. Yeah. Neither one of them are just doing it for glory, and that's precisely what Colton's doing it for.
Yep. Then we get a microfiche montage.
Yeah, after Scully comes in, she's a little bit more excited, and we haven't really seen this outside of a couple small instances. She's a little bit more interested and invested in this now. I think she finally had her blowout with Colton, and she's got information now that she's on board with what Mulder's telling right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool to see her when she does come around like this in certain episodes. Very fun because it's not who she is. So seeing her kind of hop on with Mulder's theory is fun little treat for the audience.
It is worth mentioning, of course, that she is now going to play her second role, which is to come up with the logical explanation for why or how this crime is being committed and who is committing it. Like they've found their killer. It's going to be Tooms, but she has found a way to deviate from Mulder's Looney Tunes theory and provide one of her own. Of course, it's genetics. The great-grandson, and this is, of course, not the last time she's going to come up with a scientific and logical and rational explanation to solve the mystery. But wrong, of course, because it's the X-Files. I have used microfiche. I don't miss it.
It's not really. It was a product of its time for sure.
But super satisfying when you found it on the microfiche and you felt like an FBI agent.
I'm looking at it.
All right, so now we get to meet my man, Frank Briggs.
And I'm pretty positive this apartment smells like Play-Doh. Jokes aside, I think Frank, the actor, did a great job. His monologue is very dark.
Oh, and they don't need to say anything. He carries this scene.
Yeah.
He's on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Is this where he brings up his time in Bosnia with the ethnic cleansing? He raises it here. And I gotta say that I don't think this is a plot point that really lands. Like, I understand kind of why they did it, because they wanted to be topical, but I feel like they could have had him not say it and not have the callback later with the newspaper, and it would have been just as good an episode. Like, it feels like they just patched this one extra thing on to give him a little something to chew on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening in 93. On this point, before we go to 66 Exeter Street, which I could sense you were about to take us to, Mike.
Debating whether or not to say something else, but go ahead.
Well, maybe I'll be the one to
Go
say
ahead.
it. And that is the picture of Tooms in 1963.
Mm.
There are moments in the X-Files when they've got the smoking gun.
Mhm.
You know, they have set us up with this idea that the institution, the FBI, is going to look at them and go, whatever your crazy theory is, it's crazy and I'm not going to listen to you. But come on, this picture, it's like, no, this is the guy. Photoshop doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Well, it does, but it's really low end. So,
It's about 5
this should be this should be enough to get them to pull up the SWAT team, at least to get him off the street.
And to that point, I wasn't going to say that, but it was, I think Morgan and Wong doing that thing where they're dropping the other shoe, because now Scully can point the finger and say, okay, this guy believes the same thing. And we've got this picture of Tooms back then. So it's like, it's that point where she can't deny it anymore. She can't.
Yeah.
And she's got to be fully on board because we got proof here.
There are episodes that I really like because they resist the what if challenge. You know, if you what if an episode too much and it starts falling apart, that's the one where I go, yeah, all right, you could have fixed this or you could have done it differently. But I mean, generally this episode's pretty good at resisting that. But there are moments like this where it's like, you know, if Colton is really desperate to put this murder on somebody, he's got some evidence that he could do it. You know, you don't have to worry about genetics and stretch fingerprints. You'd be like, no, this is the guy. Case closed, move on. I'll get to go to the next counter-terror squad or whatever.
You know, Morgan and Wong, they dropped the other shoe and made him believable and then took it right away when they find out that liver is kept under his bed.
Yeah.
Someone else's.
I kept all the stuff from 63. Ugh.
Oh, man. So off to 66 Exeter Street, Mulder and Scully are going to look for Tooms in his little apartment there.
I love this scene.
It's probably one of the most, if not the most classic scene from the X-Files. Mulder getting the bile on his fingers. And
I'm just going to say, entering into this scene, the dissolve between the picture and then the actual address on the street. I mean, it's not perfect. And I like that it's not perfect. But they did pretty damn good in 1993. If it was redone today, you just know it would have been done with CGI, and that dissolve would have been perfect. You know, the camera would have zoomed in on the picture, and we would have zoomed out to recent 66 Exeter Street was all run down, and the transition, etc.
It is
like
very
I
good.
think it's very good and creepy, and then just the whole production design of the apartment. This is an actual apartment building in Vancouver, and obviously they dressed the crap out of this place. Like it looks terrible.
Yeah,
like legitimately terrible. And you can just feel the mold, and you can smell the dust. You know, it's just, it's so good.
Is it 66 Exeter Street or is it Rockford, Illinois?
Oh yeah, nice.
Got to shout out the hometown, and because it's pretty shitty.
We just lost all of our Rockford, Illinois listeners. Nice done. All right, and this is where you could go down the rabbit hole with their terrible tactical training. But she's going to put her gun in her belt. And then when they find the trophies, come on, this is where they're like, I'm going to back away slowly and call 911. You know, it's like,
yeah, I would not stick around there. Is that a furry pipe I'm seeing? What is that?
They went to town with some spray foam or something, but it's effective.
But yeah, they find his collection of trinkets, which link him to every murder that Mulder's been talking about. It's a pretty cool scene because, again, those murders take place within the past century, not just now.
Yeah.
It adds some validity to Mulder. And then he shines his light on what looks like an alien nest from James Cameron movies.
We get that obviously the discovery of the nest is pretty iconic in this episode, but we do get the best line ever.
Yep.
This looks like the opening. Think there's anything inside?
Oh my God, Mulder. It smells like... I think it's bile.
Is there any way I can get off my fingers quickly without betraying my cool exterior?
No one could live in this.
I don't think it's where he lives. I think it's where he hibernates.
Hibernates?
Just listen. What if some genetic mutation could allow a man to awaken every 30 years?
Mulder.
And what if the 5 livers could provide him sustenance for that period? What if Tooms is some kind of 20th century genetic mutant?
In any case, he's not here now, and he's got to come back.
Well, we're going to need a surveillance team.
Yeah, that'll take some finagling.
Well, you go downtown and see what you can finagle. And I'll keep watch.
Was that improvised? Do we know that from the production notes? Because I think we might have.
I honestly don't know, but his dry sense of humor is part of what makes Mulder so lovable.
Yeah.
He takes like a really tense situation or makes it a little bit more accessible.
And here's our moment where he's going to explain the why of the plot. Now, we know the who, we know the when, we know the where, but it's the why, the idea of hibernation and eating human livers to survive for his period of hibernation.
He's like a human bear. He needs 5 livers with 30 years of sustenance, apparently.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a creepy scene, and they go to leave, and Scully gets stuck. Something's got her necklace. She doesn't realize it comes off, which I find a little strange. We see Tooms' hand, and it's rare footage of Doug Hutchinson snagging his underage wife.
I got to imagine another scene where the camera pans back and it's Scully's bra.
He just sniffs it.
Yeah, because as we all know, bras are notoriously difficult to remove. But that clasp on that necklace has got to be similarly difficult to remove.
Yeah, I don't understand how she got hooked, and yet somehow it just came off, but whatever.
Yep, it's a nice bait and switch. So the next morning outside of 66 Exeter, and I love just that little callback to the divide between Mulder and the rest of the FBI by him being called out as spooky by those cops.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, you got it, spooky.
I have a little bit of mixed feelings on that, only because it happens so much. Like in the early, it does lend its hand to just how big that divide is, but sometimes it's pretty heavy-handed.
I think that they needed to do it. I mean, watch it through the eyes of somebody in the 90s who is not... I mean, there were diehards, right? You're going to watch every episode. You're going to be taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
You'll post it to the BBS later. But now, you can binge watch all these shows back to back, and you will see those notes. So, yeah, after a while, you're going to go, oh, it's yes, of course, it's spooky, and you're on the outside looking in. I get it. But I think when they were writing these episodes, they kind of needed to do it in a way which always called back the fact that Mulder is on the outside. So yeah, it happens a lot, but you got to look at these episodes as being viewed in kind of isolation.
Yeah, after that stakeout, Scully has some words with Colton. He has taken it upon himself to get the agents removed from the stakeout. Yeah, therefore
it's
ruining
like he doesn't want to solve this case.
Suck it, Colton.
And in 1993, we'd have giggled a lot to hear Gillian Anderson say the word ass. Listen, she's a professional. She knows how to drop a bomb. So the scene where Scully is getting hunted in her apartment.
Yes.
I feel like... Okay, I generally like this scene. And I like it because there's been such work in setting up how these hunts work.
Yep.
So part of it's like, okay, come on, they're not going to kill off Gillian Anderson. Her name's in the credits. But at the same time, it is just subtle enough. You're like, something bad is going to happen here. Maybe she won't get killed.
Yeah, they do that color correction.
Yep.
Essentially just Tooms kind of zeroing in on his target.
Yeah.
Everything goes black and white except the victim. Which
is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice indicator of you're seeing it through the villain's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You are given... That's why it kind of works to be so horrifying, because you are getting this front row seat whether you want it or not.
Right.
You're going to get this horrifying experience. But my note here is that Fox must have written this scene because we have Scully at home taking a bath.
She's about to. She's not taking a bath yet.
The censors will not let her take the entire bath.
Even though we already know she's being hunted, Mulder's just now finding out about it.
Yeah.
And he's all the way across town.
Good. again, another way of indicating the immediate stakes without having to tell us, the audience, oh my God, that means he's hunting Scully.
Mm-hmm.
We just know that. That's, give credit to your audience. I like
Yeah, definitely. They had faith in us. But
Yep.
as she goes to open a bottle of, I assume, bubble bath,
I'm assuming too.
she gets some bile drippage on her hand, and now it's on.
We're sure that's bile,
Oh
right?
my! I hope. We never do find out what Tooms is doing in the vent.
That's right. That's right. Okay. But yeah, this is where I start to what if it and go. But he didn't bile it up in any other hunts. He didn't screw up this badly.
To be fair, it wasn't from above that we know of. I mean, they were horizontal vents up high, but this one's facing down.
So Tooms can blame the architect.
He just chose the wrong vent.
Well, he chose the wrong victim. We know that for sure.
To that, I do want to comment or start talking about his actual attack on Scully, because as hokey as some of the things are that we've talked about so far in this episode, they did a stellar job when he emerges from the vent at her feet. That was scary. It is terrifying. Yeah. Even now, I get chills watching it. It's just so good.
Yeah, and I like that they don't make her a superhero.
Yeah.
Don't have her just blasting away. To their show's credit, they don't solve problems with violence as readily as some other shows might. They allow their characters to be horrified and essentially put into situations where they're going to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very human response. You see this inhuman thing coming at you impossibly, and she, I imagine, freezes and doesn't get the rounds off.
It's such a good scene, and she gets knocked around a bit, but she fends him off long enough for Mulder to get there. I think she holds her own just fine here and just about every other episode.
Well, it's the two of them together that beat him into submission and capture him.
He gets one cuff on her, and then when he goes for Mulder, she gets the other one on him. It's awesome.
Yep. And I like to look at X-Files episodes through a lens of what did the characters actually do. Like some episodes, they're very much passive observers to the plot, and stuff just happens around them. In this one, they are pulling their weight. Your tax dollars at work, basically, or your fictional tax dollars at work. They solve this case, and they capture a bad guy, and they put him in jail.
Yeah,
it's one of the rare times they are actually able to conclude something. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Which is exactly what Blevins says he wants, and what Skinner eventually talks about. How do you prosecute these people? But this is definitely a case where, they get the job done.
Although you never get to see Mulder sort of wave this file around when they talk about the X-Files. Like, hey, we solve cases.
I have one.
I have my one case.
Eugene Tooms.
In no way will they release him in the future. So yeah, we get back to Briggs. We have a nice epilogue number 1.
It's a nice one, though.
It is. Again, the ethnic cleansing thing feels like the weakest link, but...
it's a stretch to say that a serial killer killing 5 people every 30 years is the same as ethnic cleansing, for sure.
I think they wanted maybe to say, as I've been thinking about it, maybe that he is a monster and that the people, that were responsible for ethnic cleansing were also monsters.
Yeah.
Stretch.
Yeah. So then it goes from there to a really nice, cool segue of the newspaper tearing. You think it's the old guy, and then immediately it's shown to be Tooms in his cell.
Yeah, classy transition.
And he's making another nest. Mulder and Scully watching.
Molly.
They're watching from the hall, discussing this man, and Mulder kind of waxes poetic about all the high-tech gadgets we have to kind of keep us safe in our homes, and it's just not enough when he looks at Tooms.
I'm surprised that they didn't put more of that in the episode, like having Katan on the fireplace guy, punching the security code when he comes in, and
just have every victim have some different form of security system.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to lay it on a bit thick, that's maybe the disconnect. We could have had that instead of the ethnic cleansing from Bosnia. But my favorite bit in this last scene is, of course, Tooms looking at that delivery hole, and where the food is coming into his cell.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that they are able to communicate so much through his glance and the cutaways between that and the whole, and you're just seeing him go, this is how I'm going to get out.
Yeah, he's got that slow grin going on, and he's just staring at that hole, and it fades to black. End of the episode. Yep. Which, in a normal Monster of the Week episode, that would mean anything. But we all know there's a sequel coming up.
True. Well, he's just such a good character, so
yeah.
I'm not at all surprised they brought him back.
No. To be fair, a decent episode.
Yep.
Final thoughts?
All right, so I've been dancing around this point, and I will come right to it. Would this has been as good an episode if we did not see, if we did not have so much Tooms time? If we just sort of had the vantage point of our characters, our heroes, investigating the murders and then uncovering the details, and you're the viewer looking over their shoulder as opposed to looking over Tooms' shoulder.
That is a great idea, and it could have been done either way. This way we get to see kind of the tension of Tooms being able to do the things that they're talking about, but the way you're talking about, where they're just piecing together the clues to ultimately find out what this person can do. I think that would have been a very cool episode for sure.
It would have been different.
Yeah.
But they do go back to the well on this a lot. Like they Die Hand der Verlitz, that is totally another case of you're seeing it from multiple bad guy perspectives, right? So yeah, I think it's probably a storytelling choice that the X-Files draws on a lot. I'd actually be curious now how many episodes we get where they don't reveal the bad guy, like if it's a real honest murder mystery and you don't get it until the very end. They suss out the bad guy. But anyway, I think it would have been interesting if you would not have seen as many cool CGI stuff. Like you would not have seen Tooms going in the chimney. Yeah, I guess it would have been a bit more rote. And part of the appeal of the X-Files is getting to see the gory,
the freaky
details.
Stuff.
Yeah, the freaky stuff, and reveling in it.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the X-Files last night? Oh my god!
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember when he just came out of that chimney? Yeah. Well, I liked it, and I think it earns its designation as one of the best Monster of the Week episodes because it. I think a lot of future TV shows draw from this style. So I think they have a lot to thank X-Files for blazing the trail.
This episode needed to be a smash, in my opinion. I don't know that from anything other than to say that they were essentially trying something different. They weren't keeping with the mythology. So this one needed to be something that viewers could be like, okay, so they're doing different things and I'm still interested. And I'm really liking the show. If this had not been a great episode, you never know what could have happened or not happened.
And when you think about the trouble that went on behind the scenes to make it happen,
exactly.
there were some definite production problems. I mean, they never worked with Harry Longstreet again. So despite that, they managed to knock one out. Maybe because they had to work harder. It turns out so well. That's what I'm going to put my money on.
It's just such a great episode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that concludes Squeeze. Thank you all for listening. And if you'd like to say your goodbyes, please do so.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review on your podcast app of choice. Andrew and I would be eternally grateful to you fine people for helping us expand and get the word out. Also, we've got a killer group on Facebook. Feel free to join in on the discussion at facebook.com/groups/thisisnothappeningpod and become an official member of the syndicate. We do polls and we have questions for every episode to give you guys the opportunity to chime in and possibly let your voice be heard on our recordings. And please join us on our new Twitter at tinhxfilespod, no dash, to stay up to date on everything, moment to moment. Thank you, and remember, don't stop swimming. It's that time, everyone, the Magus Media Production sales pitch. Please check out our homepage at magusmediaproductions.net so you can stay up to date on all of our shows. Check out our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/magusmediaproductions, both of which have our Discord link on it, where you can join us for live shows as we record them for future release. At Magus Media Prods on X, our Patreon, patreon.com/magusmedia, where a $5 donation will help us keep the lights on and bringing you new content, and you get some stickers. Thank you for your consideration and support.